Welcome back to the Getting to Know Denver podcast. This is episode 143, and we're going to talk about why most real estate investors fail today. And we live in the world of Instagram and influencers, and you see all the prettiest parts of the work, right, and the rewards, but we don't see what actually goes on behind the table and what most really savvy investors do well. So we're going to talk about pitfalls today, and we're going to talk about some of the things that really smart, savvy investors who are extremely successful and just make an absolute fortune on real estate do over the life of their real estate investing career. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about is the biggest reason why most investors fail.
People don't realize Instagram Reels are edited. They only show the glamorous part. They don't show the work behind the scenes. Like, they just flash forward 3 weeks or 6 weeks on the project, and all of a sudden, magically, the kitchen's put together. So editing.
Simple reason why most fail is they just don't start. They don't do it. We're all pretty analytical folks. Not everyone. Most people have some analytics to them. Certainly, people who go in looking this start with that. Sometimes you can do too much. There's no perfect deal. Certainly not now. Maybe there are more perfect deals in the past. Fear, just angst, a lot of putting money, just fear of failing. And just constantly in the cycle of learning, thinking at the expense of doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people, they work really hard, and then they have maybe an income boost or a raise or a bonus or something like that, and that goes into padding their lifestyle, right? Into taking care of a need that they've had for a while or a want that they've had for a while.
You always celebrate a $400 a month raise with a $500 a month car payment. That's the easiest way to go about it.
Sadly, like that is the norm in America, right? Like that's what we deal with. And so I think the investors, they smart ones, they don't pad that lifestyle. They hold off and they think, oh, I got a raise. I have an opportunity now that I'm going to turn into an investment, which is cool.
There's got to be some trigger though. Like you've been around it, in all of our cases, there's some event where you finally understand the math and you say, wait a minute, how much is that? $400 a month? I could do a lot with that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of folks spend a lot of time. You were joking, Instagram videos or YouTube videos. Podcasts is a great podcast. You can learn a lot here. Reading all sorts of books. But I think as we start, the reason they fail the most often is not doing it is this analysis paralysis, right? You got to do that. You got to build some confidence, but you got to ultimately take the first step.
I think one of the biggest reasons too, I hear this all the time, more than anything else, is like, oh no, I don't want to be a landlord. Like the pain outweighs the opportunity for most people, and they totally underestimate the opportunity and like the long-term gains.
That's going to feed in almost everything we talk about here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's the biggest reason. I really do. But then there's number two as well.
Yeah, and I would say that would be chasing the wrong deals. A lot of beginners are focused on the cheapest property, the biggest projected return, or even just the newest trend, kind of going off Brock's Instagram reel thing, instead of the fundamentals. And then some common examples of this are just out-of-state deals that they don't understand, fix and flips with unrealistic budgets, and then properties in unfamiliar markets. So, just continuing on why that's important to be educated if you want to do this and be an investor.
Totally. And I think that this is where sometimes realtors get a bad rap because, sometimes investors will just think like, oh, I'm just going to use a local expert. And that realtor maybe doesn't really act as a consultant, right? They're just like, oh, sweet, I get to do a deal with this investor. Where if an investor isn't looking into all the details and they're not really digging into this, they may go after the wrong deal, and the agent's just going to allow that to happen if they're just pushing the papers and doing the deal. Where you really want a local expert that's going to say like, okay, the numbers don't line up here, so let's keep looking, right? Yeah. And I think the integrity of that is huge, and not all realtors are created equal. That's why we do what we do, right? And why we wake up in the morning is to really help people the right way and make sure that they're getting into a great investment that's going to have great long-term benefits. There's always risks, but have a much better chance of succeeding rather than just yeah, let's go buy a house, go put your money somewhere.
I wish we could channel, so if you watch this podcast, we're not always all here. Jackson, not here today. And he spends part of every single day looking for the right kind of deals for at least one investor I'm thinking of. So he's probably, he's got scars, and whether it's the investor's mistake or his learning,
Yeah,
he's a hell of a lot better at it after 3 years
for sure.
than the first time.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm helping a client, whether it's an investor or just, somebody that I'm, friends with, whatever else, I always look at the decision of buying the home as a mutual decision. Like, I'm looking at it not from I got to live here and that type of perspective, but are you next to power lines? Like, is the furnace going to be old? Like, hey, if you're good with this, you're going to have to probably put an HVAC system in it in the next 5 years, or the roof is going to need some attention, or the windows are bad. Like, those types of things. So that way the budget and the inspection and all of those details are put together. And it's kind of like I'm checking the box from the structure and all the big major financial constraints, if you will, and they're looking at it from, can I see my kids here, and that type of stuff, and the school districts are good. So you tie all of that together, and that's where I kind of think it's a mutual decision. So it's not just chasing a commission, but it's something that's a joint process. I look at it that
A
way.
good segue to the next section.
Well, before that though, I think the biggest mistake, like out of this list, like the people that look for the cheapest opportunities oftentimes align mentally with people that end up wanting to be investors, because they're all about the numbers and they have that mentality and they want but then they go after the cheapest property that's going to end up being kind of a liability for them instead of something that's in a more quality neighborhood. They overlook that location matters most out of everything. And that's where that local expert comes into play. They can really help coach that person maybe away from the cheapest property out there, and maybe just go up another tier, and then you'll find this with way better cash flow, way better numbers, and then it all makes sense more. But the Walmart shopper mentality, or like the penny pincher mentality, sometimes can be a detriment for some investors that end up
Makes sense
making
though,
mistakes.
because this is their first time. I've got this much money. What can I get? Let
Yep.
me go. Because we said biggest problem is not starting. At least they're starting.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
the next wave of mistakes
Yep.
can be just as bad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, one of the next things that people do is just complete oversight, honestly.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I've seen is, especially with investment properties, the advertised rate for their cap rate is much different in reality when you look at the math and the numbers behind it.
So actually, stop there because you just mentioned cap rate. I'm sure we haven't talked about that a lot, and a lot of people don't understand.
So
what that
cap rate is a ratio of the net operating income for a property or an investment property divided by the property value or the purchase price of it. So it's that ratio. So purchase price, your operating expenses, so your insurance, your CapEx, so things like improvements in the land, if appliance purchases, all that type of maintenance stuff that goes along with a home, as well as your income from rental.
So, like, how much is this property really netting you by how
much I'm
how
paying
expensive
for
it is, right? For how much you're paying for it.
So like
So
you used to get 10% 3 years ago. That wasn't the hardest thing.
10 would be a home run.
Yeah,
It's
like,
really,
that's a
really
home
hard
run.
to
Even-
get 5% now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 to 6 is like a really good investment.
Sorry, that was a
nowadays.
tangential.
Yeah.
but it's-
No, but the key part with that is when they advertise an investment property, their cap rate numbers versus what reality are typically always different. There's always a 2 to 3% delta. And like I've gone through several of them where, they got the cap rate and they're showing that the rent's going to be, like $4,500 a month, but then they have it advertised for $3,500 a month. Well, $1,000 a month in rent significantly changes your cap rate.
And they don't properly disclose expenses that
Yeah.
happen. That's the other tough thing. So it's hard to really know your cap rate until you live there for a year. But asking for a rent roll, asking for a real true documented expenses sheet
Yep.
would be a good idea.
Yeah, and I've seen quite a few of them where, the reality, once you ask the right questions, you flush out, that's not really worth that. So, and now we had one where, the asking price was really, really high, and then they sold for like $250,000 less because once you uncovered everything, that's what the market would bear.
Part of the local expert is right there.
Yeah.
Yep. And sticking true to your guns, right? So, hey, here's the rate I'm looking for, and go with that.
Well,
So
I think, but that's,
that's
we're moving on, like, that's the next topic.
yeah, underestimating costs.
okay.
So there's maintenance. I mean, every home, just like every car, whatever, there's going to be a certain amount of maintenance. You can get a pretty good idea the longer you've owned a home. You can say, hey, this water heater's 22 years old. I think I'm going to have to do something about it, right? But then you also have unplanned maintenance, right? I've got renters in a place that, maybe they plug the bathtub and flood the house, right? Those types of things you got to pay attention to, or kind of have that contingency plan. Vacancy rates, right? So if you're renting at $3,000 a month, well, 2 months of that being empty is worse than $2,800 a month for somebody who's willing to pay that.
And I would say just cosmetic improvements for maintenance too. I mean, capital investments on cosmetics is a big deal, because to stay relevant with the rental market, sometimes markets change. Like I had a property that I rented out for 5 years, didn't have an issue. I always had a tenant, had very little vacancy. But then now that the market shifted and rent, it's harder to find a renter right now. Now everyone wants AC in the place. And before I just had window units, now everyone wants central air. So I'm bidding out central air right now to see what that costs, which is a ton of fun. So like sometimes the capital investment comes in form of mechanical. Sometimes it's like they're just not excited about it because they're seeing other places with quartz countertops now, and you don't have quartz. So you got to update.
Yeah, and also saturation of the market, right? If you're in an area where there's thousands of different choices, your location is no longer a premium, right? But if you're in an area where there's not a whole lot of rental properties, you're going to be able to stand out a little bit more. So that's things to look at. And capital expenses you talked about, insurance increases, they're definitely an impact there. So, and then the unexpected repairs we kind of talked about, window units compared to central air, so significant cost difference for you.
Yeah.
So
Big time.
yeah, and I like the hope is not a business plan, right? So you can lay it out. There are factors. There's a lot of online calculators that you could put these numbers in, and there's ratios that make sense to kind of just plan for. And I mean, I budget for tires for my automotive use on a regular basis. I don't buy them every year, but I account for them. And some years it's really, really high, and some years it's really, really low. And it's just the nature of the savings account, right? The hill and valleys of it. So, but the other challenge that I've seen is folks. Well, Landon, you've got rental properties, right? You have to take an active investment in it. It's going to take time. Anything that's going to generate any revenue, especially over a long term, you're going to have to be active in that.
Yeah, and I think some investors, they just they're very cutthroat numbers people sometimes, who don't they focus so much on the property that they don't think about the people that are actually going to live in it, and they become kind of bad landlords in a way. We've heard the term slumlord. I don't love the term, but like
Yeah.
you have some of those where it's just like they lose tenants left and right because they grow a reputation of not taking care of things when things break down, or not allowing tenants to have any flexibility ever. So there's definitely, you can give too much flexibility when you shouldn't. And that's what a good property manager will do is help you with that. But a lot of times, you have to focus on tenant screening like it's your job if you're managing this on your own. And I mean, my recommendation is you see anything that has the word eviction in it ever, I wouldn't even ask any questions. Sorry, that's not going to work. I mean, that's just kind of what I've come to from my experience. And sounds harsh, but I've had experiences where they always have a way of explaining around it, but it'll come back to bite you, which is just frustrating. And so,
is there a story? Have you been burned? Or you've actually
oh yeah,
death?
Absolutely, yeah. And I ran into a person who had a good credit score, great income, everything was good, but had an eviction on the record from when she was an 18-year-old, just recent adult, when it started to matter. And the story that I was told was I was just co-signing for my parents who got into a bad spot, and then I got taken down with it. Well, turns out, 8 months later, her entire family moves in without my permission. Siblings, little siblings, parents, everyone, the whole family. I have the whole family of people that have gone through evictions in the past now in my place. So I had to get them out of there. They broke my garage, tore up the carpet, tore up the floor, tore up the paint. So it cost me a lot of money to do that, and it's painful when you go through things like that.
Is your red badge of courage?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I was like, okay, I'm done managing this on my own. I called the property manager and had my property manager take over from that point on, and that's been helpful to not have to make those emotional decisions, and somebody else is keeping it by the book and enforcing the rules. That's not emotionally invested in the property or the people.
Yep.
So that's kind of nice. But as a landlord, when the property manager reaches out and says, hey, I'm hearing complaints about this and this, you have two choices, right? You can say, no, it's not something I'm going to deal with, right? And sometimes that may be the right thing. It may just be kind of a, squeaky wheel or something. But there are other times where it's like, if they don't have a washer in their place for a week, like I have a house with kids, and you don't have a washer.
That stacks up.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a very first world society. People are like, I'm not going to the laundromat, I mean, it's sad, but that's just the way our society works, in a lot of places. And so like those types of things you have to show some urgency with and actually take care of people when that stuff comes up.
Yep.
Disposal goes out. Jump on that thing.
Yeah. It can
Gotta
get
have
ugly
that.
real quick.
Yeah.
So, no, and I think my friend who has a lot of rental properties, he made a comment. He goes, I always talk to their current landlord and I always talk to their previous landlord, because the current landlord, if they don't like them, they have motivation to get them out. But the previous landlord, they'll tell you it straight. So I thought that was always good advice. So.
Yeah. Well, real estate's never completely passive. It is one of the best passive incomes that you can have for the most part, but effort-wise, it's never completely passive. There's a little bit of effort that has to be there. And so that's important.
The more passive you are, the less return you're going to get, right? So if you're hiring out everything for everyone to do, property manager, maintenance, all that type of stuff, your rate of return goes down significantly.
Yep, it does. But sometimes it makes sense.
Yep.
To take a little less, but have a lot of that stuff done for you is huge.
There's a balance.
So I don't want to get too tangential here, but you've been doing this for 5, 6, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, unplanned expense, like they were just water under the bridge because you were making 8% a year from an equity perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case anymore.
Mm-hmm.
How has that changed your monthly stress or your planning, if at all?
Yeah, well, not only that, but the rental market's gone down. So I've had a couple units that I've had to drop a couple $100 to get tenants in, or do more capital improvements to get tenants in, or both in some cases. So and I experienced this during the Great Recession too. We saw a lot of investors that just, could not even rent the place out when they had to sell or they were underwater because the rental market was so poor. So people don't understand that the rental markets are not always just tip-top shape. They go through ebbs and flows too, where they're hot or they're not.
They're the first indicator of the real estate market is, affordability is a big issue. Rents can't continue to climb what they are. So it's a leading indicator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. But, yeah, so that's definitely a factor. It makes it a little more stressful during those times.
That was my point, like the desire to have this feel passive.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants it to feel passive. You can make it feel more passive if you're willing to hire a property manager. But when you're not seeing equity gains year over year that you were a few years ago,
when you're in a
it's
tougher
a lot more
market,
active.
it does become more active, for sure. That's a great point. And the other point I would make to this, and this is one of the best takeaways, I think, from what I've learned from great investors and from reading lots of books from Robert Kiyosaki and other investors that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant and some of those that I really jump-started me, to become an investor. But one of the biggest things that I learned from him was you win on the investment on the purchase. And most investors will buy a place considering that, well, if it goes up, this is going to be a really good investment, right? Or if interest rates drop, this could be a really good investment. The numbers have to work now.
Yep.
You have to have numbers that work now and have a little cushion for working now. If the market goes down, you don't want to be sunk, right? So great investors, they get a little stingy on price up front because you win on the purchase. That's where you win. And then you reap the benefits later on. So to answer your other question, right, I felt like I won on the purchase on all three of the ones that I have. right? And so now that the market's sagging, I'm not pulling my hair out, right? Thinking I'm not losing money, right? But it's one of those things where you've got investors that just buy and they're just even kill, like they barely work, they're hitting their numbers, but that's it. The market turns it all. Now they're losing money every month. And that's not a good feeling. That's a lot more stressful. It's a completely different feeling. There.
Different emotional capacity to go make good decisions when that happens. So
Yeah, for sure. So having the right down payment, having like 25% down or more helps a lot with that because it gets you to a point where you can have some positive cash flow and some cushion there.
Certainly now.
Yeah, or
your
even
first,
more.
Your first mortgage is probably, anyway, a whole lot lower than it would be now.
Yep, definitely. So, and there's, another mistake that creates problems for an investor before they even close on the property. And that's just buying based on emotion instead of really looking at the numbers. And I have a great example of this. I love those brownstones in Highlands Ranch Town Center. I love them. Every time I just want to walk that neighborhood and I love going through, I love the architecture. They're so cool looking from the street. And I've always wanted to own one of those. And I've looked into it like several times. Every time I've looked into it, the cash flow sucks. They're terrible. I've never even come close to I'm like, I'm gonna be underwater $500 a month on this place. Before, now it's like even worse, And so there's just, you'd have to put a lot of money down for that to make any sense. And there's like about 20 other investments out there probably currently on the market that would make more sense than that one. And shorting that, there's probably way more. But that's a great example of like if you really love a community, just because you love that community or that architecture or that style of home. A lot of people do this with turn of the century homes too. Oh, the home was built in 1914. It's a Victorian. It's so beautiful. It's just the cutest home you've ever seen.
Math is math.
Oh, money pit, right? Money pit, here we come. And so you have a lot of those emotional things that can tie you down to a bad investment. So just really focusing on the numbers, on winning the deal now on the purchase, then you can reap the benefits later. It's all about what's the cash flow right now, what is the appreciation potential, right? Could this neighborhood go up because it's a great location, or is it in a
or their future expansion or what's coming to the area that's going to bring it in, right? Knowing that information,
driving more value, commercial. That's
I've got a
coming
buddy who owns a lot of properties, and it's in an area adjacent to the potential new football stadium. And he's been looking at it both sides, and he finds these people glowing. Oh my God, it's going to go up. He's got people saying, no, it ain't. So,
I think the stuff around the new Broncos Stadium, I think it will go up. I think it'll attract some value there, as long as you're not too close to where it's just going to be a
No, it's not.
constant traffic.
It's not so close that it's a slam dunk.
Yeah, how do you calculate the lot size and parking everybody on your yard? I got to figure out where that comes into the ratio.
Hey,
you know
I'd
this.
be thinking $80 a car, man. Let's go every game.
We're going to, my
Compact only.
siblings and our spouses, we're going to go to a Packers game.
Yeah,
And that is the most impressive thing of that whole town
Yep.
becomes a really fun parking lot.
Yep.
Wow.
They know how to tailgate.
Because it's all just a neighborhood, right?
But
No,
everyone
green
is selling spots in their driveway.
bay. Crazy.
You're like, how do you get 8 cars in that one driveway?
That's nuts. How much would you charge someone to not be able to get out of your garage for 3 hours?
Do it every Sunday.
Yeah,
All right, we digress. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
they probably have a YouTube channel for after the game. It's probably entertaining. So.
And we're talking about the downside of mistake is letting
just-
emotion play too much a role versus numbers.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, think of it as an asset, right? And remove yourself and the emotions completely.
It's all spreadsheet.
Yeah, and you can't be enamored by the upgrades or the cosmetics either. That's another common mistake. Is just real estate is such an emotional buy, especially when it's your primary residence. You have to remove yourself as an investor. And when you update the home, you maybe don't put the highest quality stuff in that you would like there, right? You remove yourself from that too.
You put the most durable finishes in.
Yeah, durable but good looking at the same time.
So we represented buyers
Basic.
around the turn of the year, and they ended up buying a little home up in Arvada, and it was sitting there for a while, and it was someone's very first flip. And it was very apparent to the eye that, like, wow, that's 1.5 Granted, like, what were you thinking? And, wow, those are top of the line washer dryer.
Yeah.
They overspent on the finishes
Yeah.
because it's probably something they would have loved,
Totally.
Yep.
but they were trying to do their first flip, which
Yeah.
did not go very well for them.
Did you get the balance sheet for that one to see where they ended up? Or?
No, but
No?
I'm pretty sure we got a good deal.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go crazy in
Yeah,
areas.
I
that
think
are-
it was what they would have liked. It's very nice, but it's probably more than they needed to spend
Yeah.
to get the proper return.
Right. Yeah. Oh, totally. A prime example of that. I just went and toured homes with a luxury buyer, right? And we looked at a home that had a $500,000 outdoor kitchen, and they're both the buyer and his dad that was with us were just like, "Holy cow! They overdid this like a ton." And they're just like, and the listing all over the place said the amount that they spent and all this stuff, and they're just like, who would want, and they just, it was so niche to them, but not to the market, unfortunately. So you can get yourself in trouble there because of emotional upgrading. But let's talk about, we've talked about a lot of the mistakes that investors make. Let's talk about some of the very, the habits of successful investors and what they do, what makes them uncommon.
What are their atomic habits?
Yep.
All right.
Long-term focus, like win out of the gate.
Yeah.
Math is math, and the longer you hold it, the better the math goes.
We haven't even talked about that as far as like, there's so many investors that just they buy and it's like they're day traders, right? Like buying a property and just wait. Flippers are like that, right? They just
Day
want to
trade.
make an immediate profit, turn and burn, but then they're paying a higher rate of taxes.
Yeah,
They're
we really need to bifurcate what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You're a buy and hold cash flow. We talk about flippers on this podcast quite a bit. They're a stick and move.
yeah, and you can make a great living doing that, flipping
Yeah.
homes if that's your strategy. But I'd say you can make a fortune buying and holding and having assets grow over time and compound in interest. There's just nothing like it, in my opinion. So yeah, the long-term mindset, that's a huge deal. When you're buying a property, you're thinking, this is 10 plus years investment, maybe 40. Just this can help with my wealth creation. This is another asset in my portfolio of investments.
So you've said something, and I'm sorry, I don't know if it was in confidence. I don't think it was. But the way you think about your investments, we can joke you have a lot of kids, right? At some point, you're going to pay a lot of money for weddings and
Yeah.
schools mostly.
Totally.
And you've thought about this as a way to create great wealth over roughly that period of time. And you can almost align your investments with each of the kids and the expenses you
Yeah.
plan for. I don't mean if that's necessarily exactly how you think about it.
That
but-
has been my mindset, is like get a unit for each kid, that I can help. If I'm in a tough spot later in life, I need to pay for a wedding or I need to pay for a college or something like that. I can take money from one of these, or I can sell one of these and make that happen.
Or just got to pay for Disneyland.
Yeah. Let's hope I'm not in that type of a spot. But that's definitely a mindset. And I think you have to find a why, right? Like find a reason why you want to be an investor for the long term, something that's not going to change overnight or in the next year.
Yeah.
But something that really matters to you. And for me, that's my family, my kids. It's a big reason. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the other part of successful investors is looking at maintenance reserves and okay, how many years is this carpet going to last? And just things like that, appliances, how often they go out. So they're not surprised when they get the call that, hey, my washing machine broke or the garbage disposal's broke. Hey,
Being realistic,
Yeah.
and asking all the right questions. I think having a curious mind and asking very real questions, not just pulling wool over your own face. Actually thinking through things and being persistent with the negotiations, with the amount of questions that you ask through inspection. Is this really going to work? Is this really going to hold up, this grading? So that there's not a water issue here. 20-year-old furnace, is that really going to work for me, when I have to replace it in 2 years?
yeah, I went through a place where they're like, oh, we just put new HVAC in, water heaters are new, furnaces new, all that stuff. And when we got there, I found one of the water heaters was 22 years old. There was a triplex. They only had 2 central air conditioning units. The third one was vacant, missing. And I'm like, the reality of what they were telling you versus when you were on site was significantly different. And Yeah,
So part of what we're saying, why people succeed, is because that's noise. They go and figure it out themselves.
yep. Because you can read the marketing, but the reality is you got to be, I don't know. The proof is in the pudding, I guess. So
Setting aside, like, I don't know how disciplined, if you always know that there's cash there should you need it, or you literally create a fund to be X percent of whatever,
Yeah.
and then you're not surprised. Like, I think a lot of what, we talk about high HOAs, and a lot of that is just the equations they've used for what is the right capital reserves to hold. Your insurance goes up 50%. None of your math works anymore.
yep.
Yeah.
So being able to be adaptable and plan accordingly.
Definitely. Yep.
I think the other key thing that I've seen with anything, having a team that's around you, right? Having people, so you don't have to be able to learn everything and make all the right decisions. You have people and advisors that you can trust. So who would be part of your team? Obviously, we're going to be biased. A good realtor is going to be a good one. I really love a good CPA, someone who really understands the tax advantages of what can a rental property do for you.
Sure. That's huge. Yep. Yeah.
We've had lenders, come to these.
Yep, you
You
need
got to
to.
trust the lender.
Yep.
Doesn't
Need to have
always have to
access
be
to it.
one, right?
Yeah, property manager, great contractor. They can help with updates, remodels. It's just having, and that's the thing we can provide too, right? As realtors, is we provide a great list of contractors that we can connect you with, and a great property manager has the same thing. So you have different options you can choose from there between each. But that's huge.
When we were talking many podcasts about the, home where we had 23 offers, half of which were property managers, were investors. A lot of the conversations that I had, I learned a lot about their mindset through that process. There are flippers now who are taking deals, which are harder to come by, that aren't going to make them money, but because they get to protect their valued contractors from going to work with someone else.
Yeah,
That's how they value.
they're paying the retainer.
In this case,
Yeah.
you need to have someone you trust, you can rely on, can turn quick.
Well,
Not
I don't know if
charge.
anyone's done any home improvements lately, but if you do subscribe to the philosophy of getting 3 bids, right? You can call some people in the orange truck and come out and get a $6,000 estimate for your water heater, or you could call someone in a different vehicle and you're going to get one for $1,500 or $2,500. It's you do that enough times with enough repairs, it's going to add up significantly. So especially if your
We're
margins are
gonna avoid
tight.
telling our visitors who the orange truck is.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I don't want to. I
gonna
don't need
go
any
there.
cease and desist, but
Yeah.
if you know, you know.
Yeah. Oftentimes it's the ones that are spending the most marketing dollars that are all
In
around.
my past career, they were our biggest advertiser.
Yeah.
Yep.
So be careful with that. And yeah, I mean, reviews matter, but those companies that are spending a ton on marketing are also spending a ton on manufacturing reviews as well online. So Google's not the answer. I would call a trusted source and get a referral from them. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're listening, you've been considering getting into this and doing your first investment property, or maybe you're a seasoned investor and you're ready for your 7th, 8th, you want to continue on with your portfolio. We'd love to be able to guide you through that process. And if nothing else, just have a conversation with you and see if we're a good fit to work with you. And would love to be able to do that to help you create more wealth in your life. And so if you're like me when I was a 21, 22-year-old and I was just jacked and excited about real estate investing and reading books on it and stuff, we'd love to talk to you too. Maybe you're not in a position where you have money to be able to do something right now, but we can share ideas, we can stay in touch and help you when you're ready and help you have a game plan and show you how it's possible. And so definitely give us a call if that's the case. You've got our number and our information right here. Thank you so much for listening to the Getting to Know Denver podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.